Hello, my name is Madona Wambua, and I am a Women Techmaker ambassador. I'm also an Android expert, that is a Google developer expert for Android. And apart from that, I am also this year's co-chair for AnitaB.org, which is a big organization that brings women in the STEM field together for a conference every year. And I also just recently founded my own company called Jivu Labs, where I'm doing consulting work and also building a flagship product that I'm pretty proud of. And then to sum it up, I am the author of the new book called Modern Android 13 Development Cookbook, a book that I'm seeking to bring more women in tech just through them reading and following simple recipes to make food. And I kept my kids actually asked me, why did you go with a cookbook? And I just answered them, yeah, it's simple recipes, simple recipes that you can follow. So why not make it fun? So that is who I am. And there's more to it, but those are the ones.
So as someone who's new to coding, they can get this book and the recipes are there. And now they can create and be on the path to creating their own Android apps.
Yes, that is the idea. So the idea of the cookbook is for people to follow simple recipes, which would lead to simple building blocks to where you can build a complete app. So what I did was I went with the major components in a phone. For instance, there'll be a button, there'll be a text view, there'll be an edit text. And I know many people might not know what these are, but in every phone that you use, you will see a button. So what I'm teaching in this particular cookbook and recipes is how do you make that button? How do you actually make that edit text? How is that circle drawn? So they're pretty small recipes. Actually, not small, 70 is a lot. So it's like a lot of meals that we're going to cook, which is super exciting and cool.
Making it very accessible.
Yes, that's the key.
So if you've never been in the Android kitchen before, you're okay. You tell us what we need to buy at the grocery store and how to get into the kitchen and how to just start so we can actually have on our way to app development and software development and becoming 100%. Engineers, which is something that my dad's an engineer and also an accountant. Mm-hmm. And yet he very much gave me a strong foundation in math and science, mm-hmm. which I think served me. But I noticed that within my academic career, none of those things were encouraged. None of those things were embraced. And really, when I started college, because I went on an art track, it was never revisited again. And I feel that within things I've seen within the American culture, especially I worked a lot in media and entertainment, how much we denigrate an affinity for math. Those are the kids that are made fun of. And we don't embrace. And I've had so many interviews here with people of South Asian descent, and they're math heroes. Yeah. And we're math zeros. As far as, and especially with women, I just don't feel that we're encouraged. And now that I'm in a Master's of Science degree, I just finished a Geographic Information Technology certificate. I'm revisiting all my math, and I love math, and I see great application for math. And I feel like what you're doing as far as encouraging women who code and just being a leader in this space is so important, because I always felt not only was I not encouraged in those fields, I also felt there were people who did know that. I created a very us versus them for me. I never felt like they said, oh, come over here and learn this. It's really good and there's use for it. And you're going to find that you'll excel, you'll thrive, you'll have more opportunities. And more recently, now that I've come to the other side and embracing being a woman in tech, a woman in STEM, several of the books I'm reading or people I've heard speak at conferences say, you really want to know statistics. You really want to know calculus. These will help you in your journey. You want to know linear algebra. But don't worry about it if you don't. You can still start. And then as you go, you'll see where having these can help you. And they're easily learned through things like Khan Academy. So you can get low cost, no cost access to this education. And there's so many books and resources, audiobooks and videos. So yeah, can you sort of speak to that journey that you see? Because you talk to so many people, but women especially, as far as our relationship to math and technology.
Yeah, you bring up such a great point, and it made me just go back to my childhood. When I was young, I was very curious. First of all, I wanted to become an aeronautical engineer because I loved just how the planes were flying. I was like, wow, who made that thing that's flying with people? Because my mom told me, I mean, when you're young, you don't know what that thing is until you're told it's an airplane. And I'm like, wow, I've never been in one. How is it working? So it really made me be very curious and just want to join that field. But something that's pretty also recently to me that I noticed is that during my childhood, I never heard my parents tell me that you can be an engineer. And by engineer, I mean like computer science. However, there are other engineering fields that were definitely there that definitely were pushed towards me. Like, hey, you can actually be an engineer. So an engineer was normally was kind of like mechanical engineering that you'd be pushed to, or you can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor, you can be business person. But nobody ever told me like that's my mom's and dad and uncle. Nobody told me that you can be like a software engineer. So to me, I feel like there's that disconnect. And I don't blame our parents because definitely they didn't know. Because technology is pretty new. As you can see, it's pretty new to many of, I think I would say it's not millennial, the previous the previous
So
generation.
I'm Gen X. And I
Gen
refer to
X, yes.
someone, I am officially someone who's completely analog and totally
Yeah.
digital, which is why the embracing my identity as a woman in tech is,
Mm-hmm.
even if I wasn't designing the software, I was
Yeah.
using the software. I remember being a
Exactly.
freshman in college learning how to HTML because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is possible. I can put up a website. I remember thinking,
Mm-hmm.
oh, we should have like an online magazine. And this is 1992. So I always have felt like I've been an early adapter to all things technology. And now
Yeah.
coming into owning my identity, now that I can
Mm-hmm.
create and just being part of a Google I/O extended
Yeah.
audio summit that I just did, because I didn't have the opportunity. We were invited, but I wasn't able to actually
Mm-hmm.
attend the event. Going in and spending time with those sessions and hearing the keynotes about Palm 2 and Gemini and what's coming, and the fact that they're like, hey, developers, run with this,
Mm-hmm.
go build your apps. And I'm listening to this being like, I can build an app? Like, how
Yeah.
amazing. Like, I can, and I know that, the instruction, the cookbooks are out there. The technology and
Yeah.
the APIs and the plugins to say, go play is out there. And that's phenomenal.
It is phenomenal. And like I was telling you, I mean, I come from a country in Kenya. I mean, I come from Kenya, a country in Africa, and we didn't. I mean, I don't believe my mom. She knew about technology because technology just existed just recently. Not so many years as compared to the United States. I mean, United States is way advanced. But that said, I feel like still here too, I've noticed that problem where not so many parents know about fields like computer science where they can push their kids towards. So I feel like to me, one thing that I've been really hoping to do as a Women Techmakers ambassador is spread that word that, hey, actually, there is a field called computer science that you can actually tell your kids to try. And also, right now, so many kids, right now, like not even kids, like so many schools are already integrating computer science into their curriculum. So, which means there's so many fields that will come in the future that are going to be technology based. And what does that mean? It means technology is not going anywhere. So what I'm doing as a Women Techmakers ambassador is just amplifying that, making sure that people are not left behind anymore. The fact that I didn't know about it, my kids now know about it because I know about it. And I always find it interesting how I even knew about it, or when I was trying to finish my story, which is I got a phone too. So I didn't end up becoming an aeronautical engineer, something I wanted. I ended up becoming a software engineer because after my dad gifted me a phone, I was like, okay, now look at this thing. Not even a phone, even a computer. I was like, wow, how do they make the computer too? Who's making these things? Because I come from Kenya, it was very hard to even know who are the developers. Because I don't think, I mean, it's a fact that right now they might be developing laptops in Kenya, but before you'll just see a Dell laptop or a HP laptop, and I was like, wow, who made it? Like, how are they making it? So to me, I kept wondering, are there smarter people around me? That kept pushing me until I decided to explore, and here I am, chasing my dreams,
I love.
building for it. Yeah.
Well, and you're not just chasing dreams, you're inspiring dreams. And I will tell you that moment that we met in the hallway of the International Women's Day event in New York City at the JP Morgan building, and it was my first Google event that I'd attended. It was my first event attending as a Women Techmakers ambassador. And we never know how we inspire people just by being who we are and by doing what we're doing. You were the first person who ever mentioned GDE to me. I'm a Google development expert, and that landed with me. I was like, what is that? That sounds amazing. And how do I become one? And now I'm on that path, and I am looking at geospatial. Mine's a bit broader because but it aligns with what I'm studying at school, is a geographic information science and technology. So I'm on the maps and how do we use maps related to human security and disaster resilience, disaster response. And that's my path. I'm not ready to apply. I'm ready to understand what softwares do I need to know and be an expert at. So I'm just at the beginning of my learning journey of what it will take to become a Google development expert. And I was just at a geographic information science, it's called Esri conference. And Google and Esri do not connect. They run parallel, but Google is a geospatial behemoth, and so is Esri. But Esri is one of the software industry standards. So I spent 2 days walking that expo floor, asking people, where do I find the point of connection between Esri and Google? And I found it in databases. And I just finished a database class for SQL. And so the software that I'm going to get started with is BigQuery. And then I need to know more about Google Earth Engine and Google Earth and Maps and Google Map APIs and then this new immersive experience. But I just want to say that brief encounter that I had with you and you just being you completely inspired that for me. So we never know when we're out in the world just being who we are, how that lands with people and can help them begin an untold journey.
That is so true. I mean, and to be fair, I also didn't know about the GDE community until somebody mentioned it to me too. I've been able to bring so many GDEs, like Android GDEs, because I'm an Android GDE. And to me, back in the days when I heard about it, I thought it was an elite group, which you couldn't get in. But I realized like that's not true. You just have to continue doing what you're doing, and then eventually you get nominated. And of course, you need to have like 5 years of experience doing that particular thing you want to be an expert in, so that you can be seen as a thought leader and also speak about all these things that they're trying to do, especially the Google product. And to me, Android being so accessible and around the world, I decided to go with it. Like, this is amazing. And also the fact that I've never changed from Android. I've always been an Android developer. And I feel like having a niche is very important in your career because it makes you an expert in that particular field. So to me, I went with it and I decided to just become an expert in it. And now that I feel like I've been able to achieve what I wanted to achieve, that's when I started doing my own things. Now I have a company. I'm the CTO. I'm running like development. We actually did today, as we're recording the podcast, we launched a very major project that I'm very proud of seeing all the praises that our clients are saying. And I'm like, wow, I'm so proud. So I'm very happy.
And I love that. And I think part of the skills also in development, and I think skills that I very much relate to, because I've also had these conversations with my father about, he's like, are you strategic or are you operational? And I gear more towards operational because I love getting things done, but I'm very good at strategic. And I think that this leadership course I just finished was reminding us that you can have both of those things in one person. You can have both of those things in an organization. You need both. And it sounds like you have both, definitely as a strategic thinker, because you see the big picture, you've known how to put yourself in that niche, but very operational as well, because you're into the details. Your apps work really well. Your clients are very happy. The end user is excited about what they're getting. And so that part of it. And then coming into Google Women Techmakers, I feel that we are all together collectively growing ourselves as thought leaders, which you clearly are, and bridge building ambassadors.
Yes, very true. I will 100% agree on that. Because I feel like, to me, if I didn't have a community like Women Techmakers Ambassador and Women Who Code, I don't think I would be where I am. I feel like my biggest cheerleaders have been Women Techmakers Ambassadors and Women Who Code. Because every time I wanted to, even when I started giving my talks, way back in the days, I would give them at local Women Who Code meetups. I never went big first until later I was so comfortable and said, you know what, I'm going to try to submit a talk to this big conference and see what happens. And then I got accepted. I was like, wow, okay, they believe in me. So I started looking into how can I ensure that my talk actually captures the audience or makes sense. Because the kind of talk that I'm giving are more technical talks. I've given more technical talks as compared to, let's say, career or community-based talks. So to be with that in mind, I found my cheerleaders to be women. So every time I went to a conference, though, however, it's very sad that in the Android world, despite the fact that Android is used by 3.6 billion users around the world, there are not so many Android developers that are women. So every time I've traveled the world, like let's say just recently I was in Berlin giving a talk. I was also in San Francisco, and I noticed that my room gets people coming in, so many people, but many of the people are men, which is amazing because I mean they're coming to listen to me. It's amazing. But I would like to see that change over the years where at least more people, more women are coming in, more women are learning this, more women are even doing it. So to me, that still breaks my heart that the cheerleaders that I know, the people that I actually know in the field, like in Berlin, I had like 3 women. There was this amazing woman. She follows me on Twitter and she's from South Africa. And she told me she traveled to Berlin to come see my talk. And I was like, no way, you didn't do that. Yes. Wow, what an honor. So I had like 3 to 4 women attend my talk. So it's pretty sad. However, I feel like I always like to see the bigger picture and the light at the end of the tunnel. Because in the future, if I'm here and I stayed and I didn't go, I believe more will come.
Absolutely. I know the Women Techmakers is such a positive, powerful initiative by Google. I totally support it. And I
Yeah.
know that to get into the program, you have to be at a certain level and doing certain things. But once you're in the program, it takes you to other levels. And the support and the mentorship and the guidance and just the affirmation that you're on the right track, the support to empower our communities and help them feel included, help them find the path, help them find the way forward. How did you become a Women Techmakers ambassador?
So it was during the pandemic around 2020, 2021, if I'm not forgetting that. But for the longest, I was a global lead for Women Who Code Mobile, and that's from 2019. Before that, however, I was just the developer who was scared of not knowing a craft. So I was kind of like building on my own and just being working for the company and not even engaging the community. So I was a developer who believed in being an individualist. I mean, I see nothing wrong with being an individualist, but I learned that I didn't progress as much as an individual because I realized the tech industry definitely does need you to be in a community because a community built me up pretty fast. When I joined my first community, Women Who Code, I mean, my career skyrocketed to be fair because I was given all these opportunities to do webinars. I was able to organize women. And every time I had a problem at work, because I know the way the American system is pretty interesting. Coming from Kenya, I've found it to be pretty interesting. And this is in the fact that people like to be heads down and just doing their own work, like it's corporate. We need to work. We need to work. So I didn't have even a mentor at work for most of the places that I work. I mean, right now I'm very comfortable where I am, but I learned that it's pretty interesting when people are heads down, and that's something that I don't like to do anymore. I always reach out to younger developers just to check on them, like, are you struggling? Do you need help? Because I realize if you don't ask that, people struggle. So what the community gave me is I would rephrase the questions that I was experiencing and then just ask individually, like, how do you actually solve a particular problem in Android? And then I would get an answer. And I was like, wow, finally, I could have done this from the beginning. So I would highly recommend if somebody is new in this tech world, find a mentor early. It will help you stay in tech. Otherwise, it becomes so difficult because you'll end up being consumed by tech because tech is very consuming. Because the problems we're solving, they're not easy. It's okay we have Stack Overflow, but Stack Overflow will not solve your problem. The same, we have ChatGPT. You can Google all these questions, but you have to implement those solutions to fit your need. And sometimes there's a lot of learning curves involved in this. But having somebody that can walk you through maybe something they've experienced or they've built or done, it's really helpful. So I would say don't be an individualist like me.
the community has power, and the community has helped me so much. I mean, look at where I am right now. Before we even began talking, you mentioned so many things about me, and I was like, wow, I had not even thought about that about myself until you mentioned it, because I realized, wow, it is true. I am actually a superwoman. I'm going to use that word. Because if I'm doing all these things, but I realized if I was still in my nature of being an individualist, I wouldn't be where I am right now, right? But the community cheerleaded for me, told me, Madonna, you're doing great. I like what you're doing. I like your teaching. I like your teaching strategy. I like how you explain this concept. And it gave me that power to keep doing these things more, like just be out there sharing in others and teaching others. And then I have this thing where kids love me automatically. Like, I've never been in a situation where a kid didn't like me. Like, even at train stations, even in a plane, if a kid sees me, they all smile. I don't know if I have a smiling face. Maybe the listeners can check it out. But to be fair, I connect a lot with people. So I feel like I realized that I should have been utilizing that power to connect to people and just grow my network. But I always believe there's a right time for everything. So I don't just like beat myself down for what I didn't do, because it gave me time also to understand my craft pretty well. So I'm like, yeah, even though I spent time doing it on my own, I did learn to understand it better. Now that I'm out there explaining it, I know what I'm talking about. So it's not that bad at the end of the day. So I think finding a balance can be pretty good. So I would say definitely find a community and find a balance.
I absolutely agree. I will say, when I started on this GIS technology path, I left much of my old world behind. I was kind of feeling like I was, oh, hey, I'm in a new chapter. I'm in a new space.
Yeah.
And it was only recently going to the Ezra User Conference where tens of thousands of people are there. And I realized how hard I'm working to learn their skills and be in their world. And then kind of looked at it and was like, I don't see any other YouTuber, podcaster, bloggers here. Anybody who really has that same comfort on the stage or with media in this conversation. And it really kind of had me recommit to this journey that I have as both a tech learner and as well as someone who does have this background in entertainment and media. And coming from entertainment, community is key. You're not in the entertainment industry unless the people you know each other. That's how you know you're in the industry. And I think that's true about any industry. And I also want to kind of come back to the point that you made about mentors, because I think sometimes we feel perhaps we're being a burden on someone. One thing nobody explained to me in high school was that I would need to go back to my teachers and say, oh, by the way, can I get a recommendation letter?
Yeah.
I didn't know that I was ever going to do that. I might have behaved differently in class or had a different way of interacting with the teacher if I actually knew that I needed something from them in a way that was mutually beneficial. And so when I have to ask for recommendation letters, I always want to make sure that I have a light touch about it. I'm being appropriate with it. And you don't want to inundate the person, and you want to obviously make sure they have something nice to say about you.
Yeah.
And I think that only in my later life did I learn the power of the recommendation, the power of the letter of recommendation, and how many things in life need those endorsements. And so I think when you're part of a community, you don't need to kind of cling on to one person saying, help me, help me. Yes. You can have a light touch with many people, and they can all kind of answer whatever question you have in that moment. And then people are more likely to, I think, want to take you under their wing when they see that you're doing all of these things of your own drive and motivation, and that you are part of the community, because they also want to look good in front of other people that you know and say, oh yeah, I'm doing good by this person that I'm helping, but other people see that I'm helping. And there's this mutual accountability.
Yeah.
And
That's
I think
so true.
People are nicer to people when they know that they're seen. They can't be shady because it's all going to be in the public forum.
That is true.
And I think that, and there was a sort of internet meme image that I saw, and it was talking about corporate communications, and it was saying how simple communications are when there's a triangle of 3. And then they get more complicated when it's 4, because now there's multiple lines of communication. And then they were showing what 14 looked like, and they were saying, this is really complicated. And what it looked like to me was fabric. It looked like a doily almost. And
Mhm.
it was, and I was like thinking, I was like, well, no, it's not about, it's complicated. It's safe. When you have 14 people who know each other,
Yeah,
you are in a very safe, protected environment.
so true.
And so I think that there's the mentorship where you do need to ask for help and you do need to reach out to people. But I'm also thinking, so I'd love you to expand a little bit more on that idea of
Yeah.
mentorship too, because
Yep.
I think people don't know how to go about asking for mentors, or
Yeah.
that it really, sometimes it is as formal as, will you be my mentor?
Yeah.
Other times it's informal. Like, can I ask you a question? Can I get you some advice? Can we have a cup of coffee? Can we just have a chat? And it doesn't need to be, in some cases, more than one conversation every once in a while, just to
So
check it.
true. I love the way you put it because to me, the kind of mentors I actually had during my early careers, and actually now that I think about it, they were mentors because that's what I would do. Like just reach out to them and ask them questions. We will not have like a continuous progress where we would check on each other, but definitely every time I had a question, I knew someone to go to, and I would ask her, and she was very amazing. But now that I'm jumping into the founder space, I've found I got a chance to connect with an amazing woman. She is a board of three companies that are worth billions, and the way we met was actually just through networking. So again, I want to insist on the power of networking too, because I find it to be very amazing and community building too. Because the way we met was through that, and we scheduled a call. I didn't even know about her career because she was very humble. Like, you know, the way you meet someone you don't even know that they're that big and they're doing all this stuff. And I didn't even know she was a CEO. She was just the person that was attending an event that I was attending. And then she thought I like what I spoke about was good and the way we talked. So she came to me and then we connected and we became friends. After becoming friends, she gave me her number. And after giving me her number, we scheduled a fast call. So a fast call was, hey, you're a founder, I'm a founder. Because now she, after her successful career, she decided to go back to being a founder because she wanted to build something she's passionate about. So when she gave me a phone number, we connected. After connecting, we had our fast call. During our fast call is when now I got to understand more about the woman I was talking to. So we talked about just normal things. We didn't even talk about her career. Now, after the call was done, she was amazing and great. I was like, wow, I think this is an amazing person. I really need to look her up. So this was a shocker. So I decided to actually Google her because I'm like, wow, this woman is amazing. I don't know her that much, but let me Google. When I Googled her, I was like, my mouth dropped. Like, what? I've been speaking to somebody who's been doing this, who's been a CEO, who's been in big boats like this. Like, what? There's no way. And then when we met the next time, I was like, wow, you didn't tell me. I was like, no, Madonna, I don't have to tell you. You're a very good friend that I wanted to stay in touch with. And then I asked her there officially, I would really want you to be my mentor because I think you've done more and you're very successful and you're actually very humble about it. And I would like to learn from you and I would like to learn from your path. So what I'm trying to get at is that's how sometimes you can get mentors just through that connection from an event that you've gone to, from somebody that you met without even knowing who they were. And then you Google them later after just a simple conversation. The other way you can get a mentor is if you admire somebody that you've seen. I've seen people reach out to me like through LinkedIn and just ask me, hey, can I be your mentor? And then normally what I do is that if I don't have any mentee at the moment, I would definitely look into how we can schedule a fast call and see if we're a fit and see what exactly this person wants to achieve. But other than that, I feel like the other way you can definitely reach out to somebody is email them if you know them off it. Like this person I admire this person, but I want just a good ask. Draft a good email. Tell them what you want to what you want to learn from them, and then ask that first question. Now, I always want to make it two side because I've realized that something that we also want to do is that as Women Techmakers Ambassador, many of us are very accomplished. So I would like to also recommend that if you're a Women Techmakers Ambassador, look into mentorship too. I think it's a very good thing. You never know what you learn from the mentees. So I am actually a mentor. I joined this program back in 2011 and it was actually through an email. So I got an email from American Express about you strive is a call is I think it's for high school students in America, and actually I don't know if it was globally, I forget, but normally I get students from just around my area here. And they asked me, would you like to be a mentor? So I went through the background check and everything because I really thought that was a good idea, like just giving back to the community in a different way. And I filled out the form, and it went through, and I was accepted into their platform, Strive. And now I'm a mentor there. And I get students who ask me, hey, can you help me with my college application? So what I'm trying to say is that there's different ways to give back. I have a mentor, but I also mentor, which is something that I find to be very nice, because what I learned from my mentor and what I learned from my mentees is just amazing. And it all humbles me to the person that I am, actually, because I feel like giving back is one of the best things you can ever do as an ambassador, a Women Techmakers ambassador, and somebody who wants positive change for the world.
Let me also ask you, you mentioned earlier the Anita, the work that you're doing, Anita B.
Mhm.
What, can you tell us more about that? Tell us about that organization, your work
Mhm.
there, because there's these amazing women who have been the leaders that we are all standing on their shoulders, who got us to these places, and
Yes.
they have these foundations and these events and these opportunities, and you're obviously quite involved there as well.
Yes. So what I would say is that anitab.org is one of the best conference you can ever attend if you're a student, number one, if you're a senior leader, and also a mid-level leader, and also a junior developer or a junior engineer. And why do I say this? I say this because I got an opportunity to attend the conference back in 2019. And surprisingly, it was my first one, like just attending in person. It was my first one. And I was amazed at the number of women, first of all, that were there. So it brings women from around the world, like it sponsors women from all the parts of the world. And we had over 20,000 women come to Florida for like a 3 day or 4 day conference. And we would learn from big leaders. So, they've had great speakers like Condoleezza Rice, like Serena Williams, Megan Rapinoe, and many of the big stars. But that's not the point. The point has been every time I've been to those events, I've met amazing women in tech, because their conference is for women in STEM. And what I've seen is that the connection you can make there, and the insights you can gain, the kind of talks that are there, it's just amazing. I met a friend I didn't even know. So I met a friend through we decided to grab coffee together. Do you know how you're in a conference, you've stayed in a conference together, and then the next morning we woke up early because it's pretty big. You had to be in your venue pretty early so that you don't miss your talk. And then I met this amazing lady, and we were like, hey, let's go grab coffee. You know, the way you're walking, like, hey, what are you doing? I'm doing this. I'm listening to this. And then we decided to just go grab coffee together. And we got an Uber together. She gave me her number, same. So I feel like I've been leveraging networking a lot. So she gave me a number and I gave her my number. Now she's the CIO of Capital One. And I look back and we still communicate. She's like, Madonna, I want to poach you to come work for us. I'm like, not yet. But the fact that I connected with her through that conference, it just shows the quality of Anita B content and people. So as a co-chair, what I do is that I help shape that content. And this year, it was amazing to see the talks that we picked get selected. And I was like, wow, these are the speakers we picked, and now I see their names there. So I'm very happy. So as a co-chair, we have reviewers too that do the work, and also we review and also just spread the word of just Anita B, what Anita B is doing. So I would highly recommend, if you're listening to this podcast one day, if you've never heard about anitab.org, go check them out. It's pretty amazing. And I want to mention there's always like a career fair. So the career fair section is where you can go and get a job immediately. Like you get a job from there. Like I heard last year, I think it was Bank of America, because everybody knows about this. Bank of America, if you had done an interview with Bank of America, you were going to Disney. They took everybody to Disney. So they've been pretty big. All these big companies go there to help, graduates get jobs, undergrads get jobs. So it's an amazing place to be for any woman in STEM. It's pretty amazing.
I love that. And the other thing is, we don't learn about these things unless someone shares it. And I always feel like our brain is like a file folder. Mm-hmm. You'll hear something and you'll create a folder and you'll put it in your brain and it's labeled, it's there. Yeah. But if there's no hook to pull out, retrieve that file, you'll never see that file again. Oh my God. But as soon as you see something else reference it, your brain pulls it out and adds more information into that file. And it's so, and I feel like this is the way movies are marketed, actors, you hear that very first time, but if you never hear from them again, you're not going to think about them again. But when you especially when you start seeing it through multiple media, you see it in different places, it's that folder starts getting thicker and more, and then you're able to someone else can do something associated, and then you'll pull out that file and say, oh, these things connect. And it's so it's really important to speak about things, because so many things I see just are valuable, but they disappear unless someone else speaks of them again.
Yes. So to me, AnitaB.org is pretty valuable because I also made great connection through attending the conference. So those are the conferences I feel like have been pretty nice to me is Women Who Code, definitely AnitaB.org. And then for the others are for my community, like what I do in Android space. And then there are so many others out there that also are amazing that we can definitely have a list of conferences that people can attend. And also just following the Women Techmakers Ambassador channel just to see the kind of events that every ambassador is planning, because they are also amazing events.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Can you also take us a bit behind the scenes? Because learning to be an Android developer, becoming a GDE, becoming a Women Techmakers Ambassador, being involved with AnitaB, being a mom, you have all of these things going on in your life, but you still took the time to become an author. And you told us a little bit about the front end of the book, which is, I have an amazing book, and if you're just starting out in development, these are the recipes, this will get you started. But just taking on the challenge of going from the blank page to a published book, to having that book being incredibly well received, and being on the marketing journey of that book. But take us back to the blank page. I have an idea, because that's pretty incredible.
That's a very good point. And I feel like one thing that I feel like really motivated me to write the book was my kids. Like the motivator was my kids, my boys, my biggest boys, 8, my little one just turned 7. And every time I told them that I was writing a book, they were so excited that they wanted to know which chapter I was in. So now there was no way I was going to fail, because otherwise they would ask me, why did you stop writing? Oh, because kids are they were like my accountability person, like buddies or something, because every time they'll, what chapter are you on, ma'am? What chapter are you on? Can I see the chapter? So from the initial idea to just making it come to life and publishing it, I would say my biggest motivators were my kids. Now, apart from that, my biggest other motivators was just wanting to help others, like learn how to build apps. And I want to also give a lot of credit to my reviewers, because writing a book is not easy. So my reviewers definitely took a lot of time to reviewing my book, going through it. So I had 3 reviewers, my close friend Sierra O'Brien, and then Carlos Motor, he's also a GD. All of them are GDs, like Google experts in Android. And then the last person, I can just reference it here on my book, forgot the other, Kanthi. So to me, I feel like it was just based on that support too. And every time I would finish a chapter, send it over for review, I would get feedback and then work on that feedback and just make sure that the book is turned out to be great. So I would say it's not easy, definitely, when you're doing everything that you're doing. But one thing that I learned is that I didn't just sit on it. And I feel like this is something that I've now realized that it's my superpower, or my power, is that I do not procrastinate. I felt that not even and only in my book, but I feel like in everything I've done in life, if I'm set to do it, my mind will not rest until it's done. So I don't have that procrastination feeling where I'm like, I'll do it tomorrow. No, I'll do it the next day. No, I go and do it. And then now I can sit back and say, what's next? Because when I finished writing my book, I was telling my husband, wow, I have nothing to do, because it kept me so busy. I know, like I started realizing I have nothing to do because it kept me so busy. Such that when I finished, I was like, what is my life? What am I doing? Yet I have an app definitely that I built, and I have Budgeting Buddy, which has over 10,000 downloads. It's a budgeting app for people that use Android, because I built it in Android just to learn Android more. But I was like, wow, what am I actually doing now? Like, I don't have any book. What am I going to do? So to me, I would say priorities matter. Like what you want to do matters a lot. And also pick what is important. So to me, when I was writing a book, things that I know that I don't do as much, because I feel like this is a question of received. Even yesterday, I can share you like a message. I got a message from someone just asking me, I don't know how you managing your time. You just completed the book, you're a mom, you're doing all these amazing things, but I can't even pin down anything productive. And I asked her, you have to go back and check what is taking most of your time, and why do you feel like you're not being productive, and how are you balancing your time? Because I realized, for instance, we spend a lot of time on our phones, which is something that we don't notice. But I started tracking. I've always had spent like 2 hours, 3 hours max every day on my phone. I'm not the kind of person that doom scrolls or checks Twitter for an entire hour. No, those are things that I realized I never did, because if I'm busy, maybe working, that's my time. That's my time for working. I do not work on Saturdays and Sundays. No. So I have that strict policy because I don't want to burn out, because at the end of the day, you'll end up being burned out. So what I decided to do is, on my time, I want to know what is priority, what needs to be done, what can I set for another day, you know? So that really helped me. Setting that time and tracking your time and ensuring that you're doing what you need to do, you end up being successful. And also, I know it's a concept that might not work for everyone, because we have every different challenges in our lives. So to me, it worked because I believed in it and just framed my mind to do it, because I believe mostly the power lies on our minds. Like if I believe I'm going to be good in timekeeping, I'm going to be good in timekeeping because my mind believes it, and that's me. So yeah, that's what I did with my book. My kids were my biggest cheerleader, like just asking me, Mom, what chapter are you on? And then I would say chapter 1. And then my little boy would be like, when are you doing chapter 2? So I had to start doing chapter 2. And when chapter 2 is done, they would be so happy, like, wow, how many pages are you going to have in chapter 2? So the questions kept me going. And before you know it, we had a book.
And I guess it's the chicken and egg question. If it's okay for me to ask this,
Sure.
do you write the book first and then you find the publisher, or did you find the publisher? You kind of pitch the idea. They said, that's great, deliver us a book. And because obviously,
Yeah.
writing a book is definitely solo driven, but it's a huge team effort. There's
Yes.
many players involved.
So for my book, to be honest, this was a different thing, because I'm an expert and I've been doing a lot of great work. So actually, the publisher reached out to me and asked me if I would like to just talk about like having a book. And then they gave me the time to think about of an idea. And that's how I came with an idea. So to me, it was somebody reaching out to me. But I've always wanted to do it. However, not a technical book, because I've always wanted to be a fiction writer. It's something that I feel like in my retirement, when I retire, I read a lot of science fiction books. Because I feel like I like science fiction and it's been my passion. However, for the book, yeah, the publisher reached out to me and then they asked me, would you like to do this? And because I was already known in the community, I thought, why not? And then I went and did the outline, the proposal, the idea, and then I sent it for them to approve. And then they approved the idea. And that's how I was able to go about with it.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that just people sometimes want to understand that mystery.
Yeah.
Of how these pieces come together. But yeah, if the publisher, and of course, establishing yourself as the expert is a great foundation.
Yes.
That's amazing. So tell us now, because now you're on this book tour. You
Mhm.
and you have a podcast.
Yeah.
So they're two different things. Let's start. Let's actually
Mhm.
let's start with the podcast, and then let's lead to the book tour.
Yes. So the podcast, like I mentioned earlier, after speaking in many events, I've spoken to over 30 events now, because we have, as experts, Google supports us to like travel everywhere. They pay for our travel, they pay for our boarding, which is amazing because we don't get to spend our own money. So, but we need to track what we're doing in events. So that's how I've been able to track everywhere I've spoken to. I always keep record for myself too, because it's important. But I realized that it's pretty interesting how it all comes together, right? Because when you think about it, when you're like a woman in tech and you've been to all these conferences and you don't see so many women like give talks or technical talks or come to your talks, you end up thinking of ways to bridge that gap. So the podcast idea just came about through that. So I started thinking, how can I encourage more women to feel comfortable speaking about tech topics by making it not completely fully tech jargony, but just a comfortable conversation where we can talk about what are you working on, what does it entail, how can other people stay in this field, how can you encourage others to do that. So that was my podcast idea was. So it's called Tech Talks with Madonna, where we just talk about tech, and I've been able to interview pretty amazing women that I didn't even know I would have the privilege to. For instance, recently I interviewed a member of the Forbes Council, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, she speaks about, she's very authoritative in business, digital business, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. She gave pretty good advice, and I was like, wow, I feel like that advice was just meant for me. But otherwise, I would say their main idea was just to help retain more women in tech, and also help just encourage more women to feel comfortable giving talks. And do you know how many people just reach out to me to tell me, Madonna, this episode really helped me a lot, because the person speaking there had great insights and ideas, and it's been so fulfilling just to hear them. And we are growing. We have great subscribers too, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So I'm actually doing what I envisioned. So yeah, that's how it came to be, and that's why I'm doing it. And I also invite a lot of Women Techmakers ambassadors because they have unique stories to tell.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an amazing group. I had the privilege of being a new ambassador and doing the International International Women's Day.
Yeah.
And
One of my favorite events.
And I interviewed 8 women tech makers from around the world.
Mhm.
And that was quite exciting to realize that we are part of this global community. And what incredible stories to be shared.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for someone who is just starting out on their journey? They have decided that there's something here for me in tech, but I don't know where to start. I'm exploring. What skills should they be developing? What courses should they be taking? What networks should they lean into?
Now, that's a very good question. And after, I used to give a particular answer back in the day because I've gotten that question a lot. However, recently I started changing that answer because I've been able to interact with many people and learn so much. And one of the things that I like to mention these days is that, first of all, don't get lost in the tutorial world or tech world where you start wondering which stack should I learn first. What I've learned to be easier now, if I can advise someone, is that pick one that you're passionate about. And you have to understand where that passion comes from. I like to mention this. It's okay to try on different things. It's just like clothes, right? When you're picking clothes, for you to be satisfied, you have to try it on a couple of times, right? Like, does this fit? Is it good? Is it the right size? It's the same. It's like you're shopping for something that is going to fit you and something that you'll enjoy doing. So when you're looking for that stack, because I feel like this is where many people stumble based on the conversations I've had, like, which stack do I start, or what do I become, or what do I do? So there's a lot. There's machine learning, there's AI, there's data science, there's cybersecurity, there's mobile, there's web, and so many that I've not mentioned, right? So how you know which one you'll stick to is picking which one you're passionate about. And actually, just during my mentor sessions, I asked a particular young person. She wanted to go to college, and she wants to do computer science, and she was asking me, how do I pick what I want to do? And then I asked the same question, and then she told me, I gravitate towards helping others and just being in intelligence and seeing how I can help, like, people from crime and stuff like that. I am passionate about that. So in tech, what can I do, to ensure that I'm still helping people in that perspective, but I'm also in tech? And then I asked her, have you identified something that would work with that particular field? And she told me, yeah, cybersecurity. And I told her, yeah, I think you already have a passion. You already know how you'll help people through that particular passion that you have. So it means when you go to college, even though you'll be doing whatever you'll be doing and all the classes, at the end of the day, you'll be gravitated towards your cybersecurity, which is amazing. So if you're new in the tech field, first ensure that you find a community. Communities are very important. They'll help you grow and you can learn with them. Second, I know many people, I've had different conversation about mentors are not important. Because I've listened to many people so far. But to me, I would say finding a mentor is not a loss. It's good. Just find a mentor if possible. If you don't find one, just try to see how you can stay motivated in the field. But if you can find one, a big bonus. Finally, right now, every organization is trying to make sure that documentations are well documented. So don't fall into the loophole of tutorial slides, because I feel like tutorials can really overwhelm, especially if you're new to tech or you're pivoting or you're transitioning. It can be pretty tough when you start seeing there's a way you can build it, there's a way you can build. So you end up feeling overwhelmed with all this material, and you're like, which material can I pick? So I would highly recommend checking documentation and following, like for instance, at Google, if you're doing Android, has great documentation on how you can build these particular things and apps, and also how you can follow, you can learn so many things. And also you can look at books also, if you learn through books, because there are people that actually learn just through watching videos, others just reading blogs, and others love books, because I love books. Like I have, let me show you. I know maybe your listeners cannot see, but I have, this is on my desk. Like, I know.
A huge pile of books.
A whole pile of, yes.
So the thing that has transformed my graduate school life is PDFs that I can take into Microsoft Edge and say, read it to me. I realize how much I love audio. I enjoy videos, but I can only, depending on what it is, I can definitely listen to an audiobook a lot longer than I can watch a video. And my attention span with actual reading, I can do it, but I have to do it at certain times of the day and certain light. And I love to read, but I do find that given the volume that we are given to read at university and graduate school, I find that read it to me feature has transformed my experience. So there is so many ways we can consume material. We don't have to just feel like, oh, it's if reading's not the favorite thing, there's other ways to. There's so much information out there. I do think it can be incredibly overwhelming where to start. I think one of the reasons I've enjoyed my university program is they map it out for me. They know what the learning transformation is. They know where we're going, and all I have to do is just show up and trust them. And they make it so logical, even though I've been massively overwhelmed with many of the things. They give me the resources to go to. I can meet for office hours and say, hey, I need help. It's being able to just trust the process. Whereas I think when you're just doing it on your own, there's that second guessing. Am I looking at the right material? Is this there's so I completely agree that find that one starting point, that thing that you can commit to and say, I'm going to figure out this world, whether it's cybersecurity, understanding who the players are. And then also I think we can expand on the point of flexibility. I started my master's program in urban planning. I noticed when we did our economics and then our big data class, I lit up where others groaned. I was the one who was all about the coding and was in the extra office hours with the professor saying, okay, I'm a little confused on this. And he comes back and he says, oh, you were just supposed to hit run. All of that was pre-coded for you. And I was the one trying to write it from scratch. And he was very much understanding that I'm like, no, I don't need I understand. I didn't even understand that it was all kind of pre-coded. I was like, oh, I want to learn this. I want to figure this out. And even though I took the long way around, I absolutely demonstrated, yes, I want to know RStudio. I want to know this data analytics. I fell in love with data visualization. Someone said grad school is like a river because urban planning said, we introduce this stuff to you. We let you know it's an important part of planning, but there's other places you go learn this. So that's where I signed up for the 1-year certificate program. And after about 2 months in the program, I realized I need way more than a year on this. I'm going to sign up for the full second master's. And then I worked it out with school. I'm like, I'll take all the classes I need to get both their certificate and the master's, because sometimes if you just switch, they'll just absorb you into the second master's. And I'm like, no, I want both. I'm happy I did, because I wouldn't be getting both the SQL class, so SQL, and then the Python class, which I take in the fall, if I didn't do it way. So I think that sometimes it's understanding, and even in my undergraduate, I started as an English major, and I loved critical analysis. I'm with you in a retirement that includes fiction writing. I'm gonna be writing Broadway.
Nice. Yeah. So you're right. I feel like that's very true. It's all about what works for you. So finding what works for you is the key.
Well, I switched from English to international relations because I found that English, I could do critical analysis all day long, but when it came to writing a short story, I'd write something that was more like a blog. And they're like, that's not a short story. And this was predates actual blogs. So I was just finding writing short stories was painful for me in a way where it was really easy for others. And I'm not saying don't work through things that are painful for you, but there are some things that are so painful that you're like, I don't belong here. There's some elsewhere that I belong.
Yeah.
And I found that I love reading. I love writing, but I preferred nonfiction. I preferred real world situations. I preferred learning about global economics and politics and history and culture. And so international relations had all the same reading and writing as far as volume as an English major, but it was a different, it suited me more. And I didn't discover it until I was actually at college. It wasn't something I would have ever known about or considered before I started college. Yeah. So I think the idea is get something that you can get your arms around, but once you're in it and you see what it is, don't to be afraid to find a thread that leads you somewhere else.
So true. Yeah. I totally agree with that.
And so now I'm in human security and geospatial intelligence, which is not where I ever imagined I would be.
Yes.
And yet it is feeling very comfortable for me. And yet at the same time, realizing a big missing in government agencies is great communications, great video, great engagement, great storytellers. And so I'm like, I think I can actually be exactly who I am in this space. And that's where graduate school was just such an obvious choice to say, okay, it's time to start over again, where we begin. And I started with urban planning, and there's a lot I love about planning, but I'm very much into equity, environment, and some of the real estate groups I found in the early days were so about the monetization part of real estate.
Yeah.
And how do we just make money and at a cost to society and people and the environment and equity and all sorts of other things that I'm like, I don't really belong here. This is not feeling my community. But then when I started learning about digital twins and just the power of GIS and the power of map making and data science for storytelling. And one of the things about my particular area is that I'm intersectional. So I have to take pieces from computer science and from data science and from GIS and because there is no one program that puts together exactly what I see myself wanting to do. And so I'm having to not go down too many rabbit holes because I don't need all of computer science. I don't need but I need exactly the amount that's going to get me where I want to go.
Nice. I love that. You know what I like about that is the fact that I am identifying you as a risk taker. Because from where you came from to where you are right now, you took a risk, which is amazing. So sometimes I feel like this is something that we sometimes do where we're very comfortable and don't want to take risks. So I would highly also recommend, if somebody is listening out there, take that risk on your career and see where it takes you. I know sometimes it might not pan out as you plan, but most of the time if you're pushing hard, it ends up where you want to be. I would definitely say, if you're listening and you want to become a Women Techmakers ambassador, applications always roll out throughout the year. So please check out the website and follow us there, because I feel like
Well, some of the risk is also being flexible. I look at my entire career as riding waves. You catch a wave. Sometimes it ends gracefully. Sometimes it's an epic wipeout. But you have to get up on the board, swim out, and find the next wave. And in someone who's been an early adopter to technology, I'm very interested in zeitgeist and what are people talking about and where is the attention and how to communicate and communicating things that we're all thinking about that are
great community that you should definitely join. And also, it only takes a book. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, it only takes an email to register your interest so that you'll know when those applications roll out. And if you don't feel like you're ready to be an ambassador, you can be a member and then join and participate in these many learning opportunities, mentorship opportunities, things, because Women Techmaker ambassadors are out there creating, sharing, mentoring. And so just being part of the conversation and in that learning until you yourself are ready to
Yeah.
become an ambassador, or recommend someone else you know to become an ambassador.
Yep. And then
Okay.
finally, you can grab my book, more if you want to look into Android, Modern Android 13 Cookbook, Development Cookbook. And yeah, that's it.